Welcome into another episode of another footy podcast. As always, I'm your host Joey, and Jack's decided to take the week off this week. He's struggling to deal with Manly losing back to back, so he decided he needs a night off. But we're joined again by the prodigal son, the chosen one, Baxter. It's been a long time, mate. How are you?
It has been a long time. I'm good. I thought you were about to introduce Nathan Cleary for a second there. Prodigal son and chosen one. Wow.
Soon come,
Um,
mate. Soon come.
yeah, no, pretty good. Thank you. I got the day off tomorrow from work, so cheering about that. And I've just been, trying not to think too much about the Tigers, and it's been good for my mental health. How you been?
Honestly, same, mate.
Nice.
It's struggle street at the moment in regards to the Tigers, but I think we'll delve into the biggest storyline of the Tigers later in the episode. But we're here to talk Origin for now. And look, I got a little apology letter I'd like to read out on behalf of myself to the listeners and to most importantly Nathan Cleary. So, dear Nathan Cleary, I'd like to formally apologise. After doubting you, questioning you, and wondering if you had an origin performance within you, you responded by putting on an absolute clinic in game three and making me and a lot of people look like complete idiots. I was wrong and you were right. Please accept this apology, although I reserve the right to overreact again after your next average origin game. Kind regards, kind regards, your host of another footy podcast, Joey.
Wow, that's really thoughtful, and I'm sure that it means the world to him to have your support for the next 12 months until you inevitably turn on him. So that's really good.
Inevitably, we'll have to see. We'll see after game one next year.
Yep.
But Origin, the Blues got it done. Man, it was completely unexpected. I know for me it was at least. I know last week I sat here on the podcast and I had zero confidence that they would get the job done. But to the surprise of me and I'd like to say many, many people, they got the job done in Suncorp at Suncorp out of all places. 30-12 win. It was a good performance all around, and yeah, it put a lot of critics like myself to shame. What did you
Mm.
think of What did you think of the game? Sorry.
Um, it was definitely an interesting game. It was pretty nerve wracking. There were moments where you felt like Queensland were going to come in, but you know the main man Cleary just God, he did a really good job. And I would never say it, but I told you so. You just got to back. You just got to back him a little bit, and I think what was probably missing in the first two games was honestly just the rest of the team upholding the standards that are set and just some tactical tweaks. Like immediately, you saw New South Wales on the charge when they were first in red zone, and they just spread the ball super quick. They had Haas and Barnett as lead runners, and Cleary and Moses were the only people that touched the ball initially, and they spread it out wide. Got the ball to Best, who tipped it on to Bostock, and because they were just moving the ball super quickly, Queensland weren't able to shoot up and out like they typically do. Like, it just seemed like the pace was just a lot better this game. So they were really like testing the edges, which is probably the first time in the series that I've seen it. A few good wins, like individually, was Liam Martin over Munster. I thought that he would put on an absolute clinic with ball in hand, and they also really were targeting Capewell and Munster's edge. I think the first try, Liam Martin runs like an early lead line, and Capewell bites initially, then he has to check off and then run at Cleary, who's got the ball. And because Cable's running with a fair bit of momentum, just steps off his right foot that you just see almost every fucking year, multiple times, and just burrows through and scores. And they honestly, I felt a bit bad for Cable because he tries a lot, but he's just constantly beaten through body positioning and that sort of stuff. Few shout outs, Payne Haas, outstanding. Seriously, just like absolute monster, that bloke. fucking wish I was built like him. Honestly, that would be fucking elite. Um, and then some things that were missing was Barnett had a good performance, like just really important in terms of setting defensive line and structure, and just just being a solid sort of prop that we needed to do that. The sort of the yucky stuff. AFB off the bench was really good. And then probably the biggest sort of tactical change was, again, introducing Murray in after Yo played sort of that initial 20, 30-minute period. And just because he's more mobile and he's got a bit of a greater running threat, the middles have to, just think about whether he's going to be running, and he can beat his players one-on-one. So that definitely threw them off a little bit, as it's done sort of all series. But yeah, I mean, look, it was just a great win. I'm super happy for Loz, my best mate. Mudgie's going to be elite this year,
You owe him a beer or three.
mate. I'm going to get him a keg, I reckon.
Yeah, no, look, I think you summed it up pretty well. I think something that you didn't mention, which I thought was a great tactical change this time around, bringing on Brayley earlier than what he did in game one, and actually using a bench hooker this time around. He didn't use Appy in game two. I thought Brayley came on and added a lot of spark. I think, like you said, man, Liam Martin. Obviously, all the flowers and plaudits will go to Cleary, deservedly so. But for me, he was the biggest difference. He was the biggest difference for this game. I think was it you and Jack you were alluding to. There's some players where, regardless of form, you just need to pick them in Origin.
Yeah.
And Liam Martin, he's definitely an example of that. He just came, he brought that intensity, he has that dog in him. Um, you know, he was just from the get go, from the kickoff, man. He was just straight into Queensland, like you said, constantly targeting Munster, and he set the tone, in my opinion. Um, as well, Payne Haas, like you said, probably the best Origin game of his career, in my opinion. Um, Cameron Murray as well. He had another blinder. Um, Jack Bostock, I think he actually did reasonably well for his first Origin game. There is a bit of debate whether he touched the ball or not. Pretty a controversial decision, but
Not much
other
debate
than
on that, I don't think. I think it was pretty clear cut that he touched the ball.
look, mate, we do have a bit of a bias, all right. So,
Yeah.
hey, how many dud calls have New South Wales copped over the years? Right, we deserve one.
Yeah, I mean, look, Origin, there's so much scrutiny around every single call, and like, unfortunately, the NRL as a whole and just rugby league as a game, like, there's just so much happening all at once that refs are never going to get it all right. The bunker probably should be getting it right though, but that's just sort of it's such a poorly run competition that you just got to be used to it. And if you can't win in adversity, then get the fuck out of here. And you don't understand. You just don't get state of origin.
Queensland just don't get Origin, eh?
That's what I'm saying.
I thought Tolu Kola tried his hardest to lose New South Wales the game, respectfully.
He was
He was,
bad.
mate, I just don't understand. Like, he played on the wing in game one. So how does he have zero confidence under a high ball? Like, he didn't even attempt to attack any of them.
Yeah, it was dipping a little bit on him, which was probably on purpose. And I think it's hard when you come into a game that's got so much on the line and you've not started, and then you're told to do a job and replace a bloke like Teddy. Like, it probably is pretty daunting. So it's probably in his mind a little bit around it. But yeah, look, didn't have a great game. I think that was a pretty bad decision on Loz's part. He didn't make too many bad ones in game three, but
Right,
I
so who would you have put out fullback?
I probably would have Crichton at fullback. It also just takes him out
Yeah.
of the defensive line, and he looked really poor for the whole
Yeah.
game. So, and he's still that big time player guy that just wants ball in hand, and yeah, I think he would have probably done a better job. But it's not really the end of the world because we won.
One thing as well I wanted to mention, which I don't think you mentioned either, I thought, don't like the bloke, but Moses' long kicking game. I really thought that set the tone for New South Wales, and he turned a bit of average yardage sets into great ones. Um,
Yeah,
so that's
hundred
something I
percent.
want. To
Thanks for reminding me actually, because I was talking about it when they included Moses into the lineup for game two. Was having two kickers in your lineup is so important because then Cleary won't get targeted like fucking crazy. It took all the kick pressure off of him as well, and Moses did an exceptional job. There was actually times the people I was watching it with, them and I were just laughing because Queensland were defending really well in periods and like cooking us in the yardage battle. And then Moses would just kick like a 60-meter fucking just torpedo. And we were just out of trouble every single time. Like he literally bailed us out. I think that if you were to mark up, the top five reasons why we lost, why we won, that would probably be like top two reason. He was superb with getting us in the right positions. So flowers have to go to him. But then he also just did the other stuff really well, which was ball playing and defending.
Yeah, in hindsight, I think this is showing why I'm a couch coach because I was pretty vocal against Moses starting as well.
Look,
Sorry, Loz.
yeah, I mean, do you think I felt like Loz was sort of he was kind of coasting through the series, and I don't know, he was making some interesting choices, and then I honestly think the biggest difference was him just picking a few guys that are big player, big time guys like Mr. Game Three, Bradman Best, yet to be
Oh,
mentioned.
yeah, I
He
was gonna bring him up.
absolute blinder from that guy, and I think he's just not got enough going on in his head that he doesn't feel pressure because he doesn't know it's there. He's just fucking gets it done, like absolutely elite. And then the inclusion of Martin, a better game plan around just being a little bit more direct and also quicker, and we won.
Where do you think it went wrong for Queensland, and why do you think they lost that game?
It's a good question. I mean, I feel like we definitely outplayed them. Like in terms of probably physicality, the fill position, we really won. Obviously, with football, it ebbs and flows with where you're going to end your sets and where you're going to be kicking from. Part of the difference was that it didn't matter where we were kicking from; we were just able to kick the shit out of the ball and good chase. And then we were sort of absorbing that pressure that they were putting on us. Middles really dominated as well in key moments. And when we started to lose a bit of control and they were starting to build back into the game, Loz injected Brayley, as you said. And finally, we had a hooker who was actually running and taking advantage of any tired markers. And he was doing it every single set, looked absolutely brilliant. Service probably wasn't as good as Robson's, but we didn't really need it. We just needed to get them retreating a lot. And he built us back into the game. So uh, a number of things, and then obviously Nathan having an absolute blinder as well. But look, I honestly think it's pretty tough to win a game if you're getting yourselves up for 10 minutes of just let's make sure we keep them in their end zone, in their own zone, in their own half and whatnot, and then we're just kicking and it's like landing on the 10-meter mark and we're just getting bailed out every time. It's pretty hard to get back in there.
Um, what I found strange was his use of the bench and sort of the lineups. I mean, I genuinely couldn't believe that Patrick Carrigan didn't get on.
Mm,
Um, I think that, me and Jack sort of spoke about it last week. I think that New South Wales did a really good job of sort of nullifying Harry Grant's spark around the ruck. I think he had a lot less freedom to sort of get out at nine and do his thing and sort of split the middle of New South Wales. I think that luckily for us, Selwyn Cobbo saved his worst game for the most important one.
definitely.
um, he had a few drop balls in key areas of the field, which sort of helped us maintain field position and momentum. I think Sam Walker also had a pretty poor game. I mean, when we sort of dominated the forward packs like we did. You know, it's sort of hard for any half to gain momentum. And I think we saw that, yeah, with Sam Walker and Munster. I thought the decision in the second half to take off Ponga while they were chasing the game again was a bit of a strange one. I didn't really understand it, especially when they're chasing points and, you know, trying to get back into the game. I think that is definitely as well the last we've probably seen of Kurt Capewell and Trent Leero in Origin.
Trent Liero, like how that bloke still manages to stick around when you've got a guy like Carrigan on the bench is ridiculous.
Yeah, I was baffled by it.
Yeah, and like Carrigan, yeah, coming off the bench, he helps Grant scoot out because he's got really good quick play of the balls and he wins his contact really well. So not having him come in doesn't help Grant. Like I think it was game two or game one, I can't remember, but Carrigan's come on and Grant just started running, which I'm glad we didn't have to deal with, to be honest.
Yeah, it was like I said, man. I was just baffled by the call to not bring Carrigan on because he's one of the best forwards in the game. Especially
And
when you see Trent Leero getting minutes over him. Like, man, I was just
yeah,
gobsmacked.
100%. And like, I think honestly, you're bringing all my memories back because it was basically like 17 weeks ago that this game was on. It feels like, but Ponga to being taken off is actually ridiculous. The best player in the team to chase points is Ponga. Like on the back of sweep plays, just so scary. Every single time he's running at our like a 3-on-3, my bum hole's clenched. Like it is just so frightening.
Yeah,
And
I didn't
like
understand it either, man.
and the other thing is like Walsh jumps in at first receiver a few times. It just fucks up the flow of everything. Like it was just weird. It looked really it looked like Billy Slater was incredibly desperate.
You know, my highlight of the game for Queensland was Britain Nakora knocking out Tedesco, and instead of running through the hole, he just stood there and decided to stand over him instead of
Yeah,
trying to get attacking momentum. So, shout out to shout out to Britain Nakora.
grub.
Well, look, Origin's done for another year. The Blues got it done, man, and I guess we have that to sit on for the next 10 months.
100%. Remind every Queenslander you know for as many times as you possibly can.
Or I don't know many of them. So, shout out to Harry if you're listening. Um, who was your team of the round and why?
My team of the round was Sharks, probably no surprise.
Really? Are you serious?
Yeah, look, I'm going to give the old cliche that the scoreline doesn't tell the full story. They were really good. I thought that Brayley in the first 20 minutes, in red zone, just controlled everything, always engaging the A and B defenders, always showing one way, delivering the ball the other way, and also like selling it. And it just means the markers never settle. It also then gives space to whoever he's passing it to, which is typically Trindle or Hines, who are great ball players. And so they just get a cleaner picture in what's in front of them. And you actually see it in the first try where it goes left, I believe, and Brayley does set like the exact thing that I've just said. Looks to go right, goes left, gets the ball to Trindle, who's got heaps of space as a result, and he just stabs a beautiful grubber through, and Kaolero scores. The other thing that's pretty interesting to see is the lead runner shape is phenomenal. I think it was Burns who was on the right edge for Nickera, and it looked like Nickera of old. Like it was great. He starts really far out, and he's got a really sharp angle as opposed to sort of just running straight. And it just means that you're seeing in the corner of your eye, if you're a defender, you're seeing in your corner of your eye a player running at you. You're also trying to watch the player with the ball who's on your right. And so typically, because because they're coming from so much further out, you don't see the full picture and you're just seeing them sort of run into your vision. And of course, you're always going to bite a little bit. And they were just doing it to Nicarima nonstop in that first 20. And I think they scored like 3 or 4 tries, just having really good lead runners start real wide and run with proper intent, which is it's pretty impressive to say that the next man up mentality is flowing through there. They both sides lead runners were really good, and then the other thing is that they've got a really good passing chain. Like you think about the first 3 players that touch the ball for them is Brayley, who's got great service and deception, Trindle, who's just taking his game to another level, but a really good ball player, and then Hines, or the other way around. And so every single pass is always in front, it's flat, quick, and all the receivers are staying square. And it just gives you so much space on the outside. So there's some simple stuff there. And then probably another thing that you have to mention is Kennedy just looked dangerous every time, and it was off the back of his inside men creating heaps of shape for him. And they really took the game to Cody Nicarima and I would also say Francis Molo.
Yeah, look, you summed it up pretty well. I think, if I have anything to add, I think that the Sharks, when they have momentum like how they did against the Dolphins, I think they are one of the hardest teams in the comp to stop. Um, they're just flat track bullies, and when they're on, and they just score points at will.
Yeah, for sure.
Your worst team of the round and why?
Same game. Surprise, surprise. Just, mate, 66 points is it's a pretty bad scoreline to give away. And like they just didn't solve that lead runner problem. They just continuously bit on it early. After the first 20, the scoreline was pretty big, and as a result, they kind of just gave up. You could see they targeted Nicarima really, really well, and I sort of feel a little bit bad for him because he's not the most physical defender, and on top of that, the lead runners were just exceptional. So he was just always committed, and him trying to slide out and make one-on-ones was just they were making mincemeat of him really, and so they just struggled there. And then the other thing that's like really pissed me off is Francis Molo, and particularly like his marker work. He was always late to marker, or he just wasn't square. There was moments where he was drifting laterally, like they haven't played the ball, and he's literally standing 2 meters away from the marker point, and so he was offside, and he got called out of the play, and then they just attacked the space, and I'm pretty sure they scored off of it. And it happened again in the last play where he's the second marker, and they go to the Dolphins' left-hand side, and he just literally just jogs to the right and just takes himself out of it. And so Tom Hazelton of all people just runs through the gap, clean line break, and then they score off the back of it. It was really bad, and also just his contact was pretty poor. And then I think they're really missing Hammer at the back as well. Like there was a few tries where Fuller tried to make contact at line and just got run over. But it was a pretty poor performance.
So what I take from that is Francis Molo is the reason they lost.
So look, he definitely didn't help.
My worst team of the round. Yeah, I mean it's hard to pick anyone else other than the Dolphins. I think the most concerning thing about the Dolphins is, it seems like a couple of times this season they've had these performances in them, and I think for a team, they're charging for the top four and obviously want to go deep into the finals. I think these sort of performances they can sort of play with like a team's confidence, and I think it'll be a real test of Christian Wolf's coaching and the leadership group to sort of see if they can put this sort of performance behind them, or does it chip away at a couple of players' confidence? Like you said, Cody Nicarima, he's been in great form. He did struggle defensively a lot this game, and um, Does it affect his confidence going forward? Will other teams watch that game and think, well, he's a target in defense? Maybe we'll start sending a lot more traffic down his way. Um, they're still going to be missing Katoa for a couple of weeks, and I think Schneider. You could sort of say like is like Jock Madden. He's doing an admirable job, but obviously he has pretty big shoes to fill. And I think, the last two games he sort of kind of struggled to have any impact on the game. Um, I think, like you said, Hamaso coming back will be big for them. Cobo coming back will be big for them. And I still think, yeah, like, look, they should be. I'm pretty sure they got flogged by Manly at home and then ended up going on like 8 or 9 game winning streak. Like I think they'll be okay, but
Mm.
I think close to finals, it's a bit of a concerning performance and not one you want.
Yeah, and I like you know I don't know. I suppose there'd be coaches who just go, look, boys, just write it off. We didn't have our main men out there and that sort of stuff. Oh, that's probably the wrong approach to have, in my opinion. Like, there's so many just teachable moments in this game of mentality and that sort of stuff. And you look across the board of who's playing and who they've got lined up. Like, it's a good side. They really should not be conceding 66 points ever if you're trying to win a comp or be the pitcher. But there's stuff that's pretty easy to fix, in my opinion. It's like a lesson of probably doing your homework a little bit better on the lines and the angles that they run at. And then also maybe Francis Molo, like, I don't know, stay at marker. Like, that's pretty fucking simple.
Or go back to the Dragons.
It will go back to the Dragons, one of the two. But they did have a lot of personnel out, some important outs, particularly Max Plath. I think he only played like 15, 20 minutes.
He got injured, didn't he?
Was he injured? Can't
Yeah,
remember.
I'm fairly certain he came off injured.
Well, that's not good for them because he shores up the middle. I thought he was on the reserves and he came in for only a little bit. I can't remember.
Hang on a second. Let me keep talking. I'll look at the NRL physio.
Yeah, go for it. But he's like just leaps above. He's just leaps above Morgan Knowles, like in terms of just defensively in the middle, just really good at connecting the line, which is important. And then obviously, Trey Fuller is just like he's a solid backup, but he's just not Hamaso in defense, which is really important. So yeah.
Yeah, just looking at NRL physio, he did come off with an ankle injury.
Okay, that's not good for him.
Yeah. Your best player of the round.
Look, I initially had Ethan Sanders, and then I did just sort of rewatch that the Sharks game a little bit, and I think Braden Trindle is going to be my player of the round, which makes me want to shoot myself in
Braden
the head.
Trindle.
Yeah, I typically really don't like Trindle. I must say that I have to give him his flowers. Like the last few years, I thought he was really the problem at Sharks, taking the ball away from Hines too much. This year, he has been exceptional. Like one of the form halfbacks in the comp, and I know he's a 6, but he's really a halfback. Just did everything right. Like decision making was elite. Amazing balls over the top. Really good timing on grubbers. Taking the line on. Just playing square. Like just did everything right, and it was probably easier for him because they were just winning everything. But it starts on the back of a game manager, and he did a really good job.
Yeah, my player of the round was probably his halves partner. I'm fairly certain he broke the record for most points scored by a Shark on the weekend. He 2 tries, 11 goals, 3 try assists, 3 line break assists, 1 line break. He ran for almost 100 meters. I think that's one of the best games I've probably seen Nico Hines play in a long time. And it was interesting because we got a fan question from Naomi about the Sharks a couple of weeks ago, and I think we all pretty much agreed that maybe moving Nico Hines to fullback was sort of the way forward. But I mean, if he can keep tuning out performances like that, yeah, I think how can you move him from halfback?
Yeah, I look. I think that the number one thing for them is balancing Trindle and Nico getting the ball. Like, your best way you do that is to have them both combining together on the same edge. And when you've got that passing link, like I sort of mentioned around Brayley, Trindle, and then Hines, like that's an elite fucking three players touching the ball. Um, I think when they're competing for the ball on different sides, it just looks clunky and not as
Yeah.
good. But when they're playing together, like they fucking dominate and they are really scary in red zone.
Well, our fans are finally one for once. They agreed. Nico Hines is our fan voted player of the round.
Okay, Nico.
Well, probably the biggest story over the last week that's dominated the headlines. Jerome Luai has been granted an early release from his Tigers contract for next year, and he's signed for Parramatta. What do you think of the whole situation?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think I would sum it up that his time at the Tigers, like he's been worth 1.2 million for us. And what I mean by that is he did a lot in recruitment. He did a lot in just overall, like the feel of the place, the joint. Got a lot of really positive PR. Probably bought us a lot of time. He did raise the ceiling of a few players as well, and he's definitely a leader that we've lacked. So in terms of that 1.2 million as a whole, definitely worth it. On the field, not so much. It's not a knock on him. Like he's one of the elite sixes, but that's what he is. He is a six, and he's probably the guy that you don't want to be giving 50 to 40 to 60% of the ball. Like he works best when he's the second fiddle. Great second option, but probably not the number one guy. And so as we start to really, the Tigers start to go, look, what's our number one issue this year? It's definitely depth. We really should just be starting to readjust the salary cap, and the guys that are on huge money like Luai, he just can't stay there. He doesn't offer 1.2 million on the field, and now that the sort of the overall feelings at the club have improved, I think honestly it's good timing for both parties to move on.
Look, let me ask you something. Do you think that as a halves combination, Latu Fainu and Adam Dwayhe will be good enough to make the top eight next year?
It depends. Like it depends. I would say that um, if you have those two as starting halves and we remain relatively uninjured throughout the year, then 100%. And I point to a few cases, Jock Madden and Adam Dewey, when we had a full health team around them, looked like the greatest combination of all time, and we looked like a really good side. As soon as there was a bit of injuries, the good times, they didn't keep rolling, and probably Jock's been found out a little bit as to the absolute level that he's at. Latu is a better player than Jock Madden, so I do think so. I think there's definitely potential, but we really need to fix our depth.
I think the biggest issue I have with this is like I understand from a club perspective why the decision's been made. And I think the biggest winner out of this situation for me is actually Benji Marshall because Benji Marshall he's been accused of having favorites and not having the ability to sort of make the tough decisions. And I don't think it would have been on anyone's bingo card. Benji Marshall telling Jerome Luai, he's most probably he has the strongest relationship with one of his most trusted players. Hey, mate, We don't actually need you next year. So I think for me that shows, yeah, like how much Benji is actually growing as a coach. But I guess where I take issue with it is, look, at the start of the year, it was we're in win now mode. The time for talking is over. We're here to make finals. And as a fan, we've sat here now for the last 14, 15 years. We haven't made the finals. And, like, we're here to, at the end of the day, as a football club, you're there to win games. And in my opinion, the best chance that the Tigers have of winning games next year is with Jerome Luai at 5'8". And I have been like, I've said it on this podcast previously. I have huge raps on Latu Fani. I think he has the potential to be one of the best 5'8s in the game. But his development this season, he's just been coming on and playing at dummy half or lock, right? So he hasn't actually been spending time in the halves to sort of develop his skills as a half, develop his kicking game, which in my opinion is probably the biggest weakness in his game. You know,
Mm.
how has he developed as a half in sort of those pressure situations where the game's close? You need to create points, you need to create opportunities. Um, can he do those things? And he'll be 22 next year. It'll be his first full season in grade in NRL as a starting half. He sort of hasn't really had the previous experience to develop as a half. And it's like, how I just don't understand, if we're in win now mode, how you could just let Jerome Luai go for next year.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think that in terms of, you know, uh, what's the best way for us to win games? Like, yes, full strength squad. Jerome Luai is obviously there. But the biggest problem that we've had is that when our middles go down or our edges go down, the guys that are coming up as next man in just are not good enough, and the drop off is so apparent. Like, we have a top 8 squad if it's our 1 to 13 or even our 1 to 17 really. And then our 18 to 30 is probably bottom 17, and it's not 16. It is woeful. Our depth is really bad, and if you can reallocate that money into 2 or 3 really genuinely good depth players that maintain the level of physicality that we play, then I think that it's honestly worth it for the short term and the long term. Because you could talk about game one of 2027, round one. Yeah, you want Luai there, of course, but when it gets into round 16 and Samuel Afinu is injured or something like that, you want a bloke that's a really solid option and not a prop playing on the edge. And I think with Latu, like, definitely his development could be handled better. But the one thing that is typically done with halves coming through and their development is they play a lot of cup to improve their defensive reads and their one-on-one tackling and all that sort of stuff around the physicality of the game. Something that he doesn't need to work on. So he's a little bit different where, like, yes, it would be great for him to go and carve up in cup every single week. But the purpose typically is to improve their defensive mind, mentality, and reads. He doesn't need to do that. And so it's not as important for him, I feel. I would still rather see him playing in cup week in, week out than 14 if he's going to be coming on a hooker. But if you're going to put him in the middle as a link man, I think it's a great learning spot for him to understand how to take the line on, how to time his tempo into the line, that sort of stuff. And I think it was 2 years ago, he did an absolutely brilliant job when he came on doing that for us, or even last year, really. When he was the link man in the middle, I think there was a Penrith game, the last Penrith game we played them last year. We nearly beat them because he came on in the middle and was taking the ball to the line and looked really good. It would be great to see him doing that and playing to his strengths a little bit more, but I think he'll be ready. He just needs a full preseason under his belt as well. Hasn't had that at 22. I think yeah, just the amount of money that we're getting off the books, it's probably the right decision.
And what do you think it does for Parramatta next year?
Well, I don't know. Like it's probably a good signing if I don't know. I mean, the figures that are going around are a bit different. You're hearing we're chipping in 500 and 300 probably makes the difference whether it's a good or bad signing from a salary cap perspective. Um, it gives them the second option, which is great. He does play as a better second option on that left edge, and Moses is typically a right edge player, so it fits I suppose, their composition well. He's very much run first, but they've got some good edge players at the Eels that are still young, and I don't know. I feel like he could definitely help them take their game to another level. He typically his outside men do tend to get better, particularly his second rower when he goes to clubs. So I don't know. Like, look, I don't know. He's not worth 1.2, but he's still a great six, and it's something that they probably need.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think he's actually worth 1.2 in my opinion, especially in today's market where the salary cap is increasing. I think that he's proven. He's a winner everywhere he's been. He's won. He's won for Samoa. He's won in Origin. He's won for Penrith, and I think on paper next year, it's definitely one of the best halves pairing in the comp. I mean, Luai and Moses, they won game 3 of Origin and they get to do it at club level now. So I think from Parramatta's perspective, they are trying to maximize the prime years that Moses has left.
Mm,
Because let's face it, he's getting on. I think he's what, 32 now or 33.
mhm.
So I think, yeah, they're just trying to sort of maximize whatever footy Moses has left in him, and I think they're just doing it to sort of keep that development going for Lorenzo Talatena, I believe. And I think, yeah, Lua will go there for next year, and from 2028, it'll be Talatena and Moses.
It'll be good to see them link up, Luai and Moses, for the 3 games that Moses plays for the Eels. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, shout out my boy Romy, man. Everyone knows I'm a big Luai fan, so I'm a bit gutted to see him go, but hopefully, hopefully he carves up, just not against us.
It'll happen. It will happen. He'll fucking tear us
Yeah,
up.
he'll have a chip on his shoulder for sure.
Hmm.
Me and Jack discussed this a couple weeks ago, but I became official today, or sorry, not yesterday, on Friday. Bronson Jerry signs for Melbourne for 3 years starting from next year. What are your thoughts, bro?
Good signing, much needed outside back for Storm. That's probably been their weakest point. Particularly, honestly, like that left edge has been pretty bad all year. I think he's a really good ball playing center. He's really good on the catch and pass. Much needed speed for them as well. Defensively, he's pretty solid. Does have lapses and that sort of stuff, but every outside back does. I think it's a good signing.
Yeah, not much more to add from my end. We spoke about it in depth a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, gotcha.
Um, so we got a couple of questions here. Uh, Luai thoughts from Liana. Do you just want to give another quick summary?
Yeah, I think if we can maximize the depth using that money in long term investments, both internally and also externally, I think it's probably the right move to free up that money. But look, he is the best six at the club, so we are making a big decision.
Yeah, like I said, I'm 50-50 on the whole thing. I think, ultimately, if we're trying to win and make the finals, I do think we need Luai. But again, I do understand it. We're trying to re-sign Samuel Afanu, who is the best player at the club. Um, what's so funny?
Nothing, mate.
uh, yeah, I do get it. I do get it, but I am gutted.
Yeah.
We got question number 2 from an unknown user. Thoughts on Fogarty's kicking and how it made Manly lose?
Well, when you score, you get 4 points, and then if you don't kick it, you don't get another 2 points. But if you do kick it, you do get 2 points. So he left 6 points on the table, which would have won them the game. Yeah, look, he's not really the clutch player, is he? But he's just a guy that goes in and does sort of the standard half stuff that you do. I think every single goal kicker has a bad game. And shocker that all the Manly fans are having an absolute meltdown and realising the Fosballers and all that.
The honeymoon period's over, right?
Yep, they're all turning on bloody Fogs already, and he's literally like, his kicking in games is exceptional. Like he's basically on par with Moses in terms of his long kicking game, and they're trying to tell me that his kicking game's terrible just because he's missed a few goal kicks.
Well, his goal kicking has cost him 2 games now, in my opinion. The game on the weekend and then the game against the Bulldogs.
Yeah, but I mean, look, if I'm being actually serious, I'd have Garrett kicking. But that guy also has bad games in him, and it's just the nature of a goal kicker at times.
I think it's interesting for me because I think I mentioned it last week. He seems to me when the pressure's on Fogarty, he can't handle it. He's he's the opposite of the Iceman.
Yeah, a little bit, which is a shame because like in the games he seems really cool, calm, collected, and does everything right. But there has been a few moments building now. Like for Raiders last year, it was a massive letdown in the finals, and yeah, I mean in Manly, sometimes you just got to kick those goals, and he didn't.
Question number 3 from our number 1 fan, Leana. Are Sharks the real deal?
We touched on it already, and I think you said it pretty well. When they're firing, they look like probably a top 3 team in the comp, but it's about the consistency. And I think one of the major components is making sure that the balance between Hines and Trindle is managed, like they're working alongside each other rather than competing for the ball.
Yeah, I think, look, everyone knows the Sharks. They're always there and about, but they just lack that edge to become a serious premiership contender. And again, from everything I've seen from them this year, I still think that they sort of sit in that preliminary final, semi-final spot. I don't see them making any serious run for the premiership, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think they could shock people. They've got it in them. It's just whether they can actually, do it when the crunch time's up.
Well, they did just beat the Warriors a couple weeks ago.
That's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes they just turn up and they're phenomenal. It's just you don't know what you're getting.
Well, last week's tips, Jack's on the right, Jack's on the left, mine's on the right. So Jack went the Warriors, which he got right, the Dolphins, which he got wrong, the Bulldogs he got wrong, the Roosters he got right, the Knights he got wrong, Manly he got wrong, and Melbourne he got right. I went the Warriors to win. I tipped the Dolphins too, Bulldogs, Roosters. I actually tipped Souths, and I think I said it on the pod last week. Just with the whole Jai Arrow thing, they had something to play for, and I thought they'd get up, which they did. So proud of myself for that one. I went Manly and I went Melbourne. Did you tip last week?
I forgot, but I just want it to be known that I would have got every single one right, obviously. So don't worry
I
about
believe
that.
you. I believe you. Do you just want to run through your tips quickly?
Yeah, mate. Sorry, I'm not using the same format. I've gone Panthers. I've gone Sharks to back it up. Roosters, and then I've gone the Rabbitohs. Warriors. I've got the Tigers winning, which is my sort of out there pick. And then did I not select the next 2 games? Oh.
No, it doesn't look
Look,
like it.
I would probably go Eagles and then Cows or Dolphins.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, I think I'm.
Some hard games this week.
Fuck, it's tough to pick that. I think I'm gonna go with. Fuck, I don't know. You run through yours. I'm gonna think about it.
All right. Well, Jack's gone Penrith, Newcastle to beat Sharks, Roosters to beat Melbourne, I think, Raiders to beat Rabbitohs, Warriors to beat the Dragons, Bulldogs to beat Tigers, Manly to beat Titans, and Dolphins to beat the Cowboys. I've gone Penrith to beat the Broncos, Sharks to beat the Knights, Roosters to beat Melbourne, Canberra to beat South, Warriors to beat the Dragons. Unfortunately, the Bulldogs to beat the Tigers. Manly and the Titans. Do you know what, bro? I am actually tossing and turning over this one because, correct me if I'm wrong, Manly have a very poor record at Seabus.
Really,
I've, yeah, I think so. I think so. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they don't win a lot of games up there. But I have gone Manly, and I went to Dolphins. I think, like I said, it was a very hard game, but I don't know. At home, I sort of backed the Dolphins to bounce back.
mm. I think I'm gonna go for the Cowboys. Um,
Cowboys.
yeah, I think I'm gonna go Cowboys. I just think that they've still got Morgan Knowles listed in for Dolphins, which they should really be targeting. And then that right edge for the Cowboys is where Scott Drinkwater plays a bit of a 5'8". So they're going to try and give Nicarima a bit of a bath again, which worked really well last week. So I don't see why it wouldn't happen again.
I think Cowboys could likely be a smoky for the top four, eh? Because they got a pretty reasonably soft draw and still 2 buys left to play.
Yeah, and they're coming into form. They beat Penrith, and then last week they beat Manly, so they're winning games.
They sure are, mate.
Mm.
Well, that's another week done. Thank you for gracing us with your presence this week. It's a pleasure as always. No promises next week, but hey.
Never.
Thanks everyone again for listening in. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. As always, it's been fun, and we'll see you guys next week.
Queensland don't get Origin.